Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Today, Altenew has a brand new and beautiful release, and I'm going to be showing how to do some really fun layered stenciled effects, as well as use a little bit of Lunar paste to really bring it to life. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Alright, so for the first set, I'm going to start off with the Into the Woodland stamp set and also the stencil and the dies. I love that Altenew does kind of sets of 3 like this, so if you want to, you can purchase it all together and you get some really beautiful effects to easily color it in, to stamp it, and do a lot of different effects. For this first card, I'm going to use one of these stamped flowers here, and I'm going to share how to use the layering stencil with the details inside, so I can really show you the difference later on. So I'm going to place this down in the corner. Sometimes I like to kind of place things off to the edge to really ground it on the card instead of just putting it right in the center. So here I'm placing it in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm going to pick it up in my MISTI. Then I'm going to bring in my anti-static powder tool to make sure that there's going to be no heat embossing powder where I don't want it, and I'll go in and stamp this down with a little bit of black ink. So we'll go in and stamp this down. And I like to use kind of a little pressure tool. There's a lot of these on the market, and they just kind of really help to get a nice solid and crisp image. And if I want to, I can go in again, wherever I kind of missed it, and go in to add a little bit more ink down and stamp all of that amazing detail again. That is the really awesome part about the MISTI, is you can stamp it as many times as you want in the exact same spot like this. So once that's all complete, I like to go in with a little bit of clear embossing powder to really set that in place and also make sure that these lines stay nice and crisp throughout the rest of our card making process. And I'll heat set this until it turns clear and shiny. Alright, next I'm going in with the Into the Woodland coloring stencils, and this comes with 5 stencils, so you can really easily color in all the images in the set. And I think these last 2, 4 and 5, color in this image here. Although things can get a little bit confusing, one thing I love about Altenew stencils is that they do give you this in the packaging, so that it's a little bit easier to line things up. So it says in stencil 5, we can start off with the leaves here. So I'm going to start off with the more solid leaves, and these are usually the lightest color. So I'm just going to kind of rotate this stencil until I can find exactly how this is going to fit into place. And I think it lines up like this. It's kind of just a puzzle sometimes until you can really figure it out. And I wanted to leave all this in, because I know sometimes people struggle with layering products, but it's just a kind of game of puzzling things together, and I like how they make it a little bit easier with making the packaging. All right, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of mint tape. A lot of people have been asking. This is now back in stock, which is super exciting. You're gonna wanna stock up because it goes out quite a bit. And then they've also put this little etched line in here, which makes it easy to know that this is not part of the leaves there. So I'm just going to tape it off and cover things up. They just give you as many images as they can on one stencil to make it worth your money. So just tape things off if you need to. I'm gonna hold the excess down with a magnet. That's why I like to have it on the station. And then we can go in with our colors. I'm gonna start off with a little bit of Overzealous and my Gina blending brushes. I love kind of brushes for layering stencils. I don't know why. It seems to make it a little bit easier for me. And I'm just gonna go in and brush on a little bit of color. And I like to start off a little bit on the lighter side. And then, once I'm kind of done blending it in a little bit later, I like to go in with a little bit of a heavier hand and do some more blending just to add some shading with the exact same color. So I'll just go in and bring in a heavier hand to really darken up just some of the areas to add some natural shading. All right, so there is our first layer all complete, and then there's more leaves on this side to fill it in. So there we go, just kind of flip the stencil like this. So we'll bring in our magnets again to magnet everything down in place. All right, for this, I'm gonna use a little bit of fake plant to go in with just some darker green and shade this in. So we'll bring in on that same blending brush. I just keep one blending brush for each color family. So that same green one, and go in and blend this darker color right in there. Peel off our tape and reveal the second layer. And I love Altenew stencils because of how easy they are to layer up to get that really beautiful natural coloring and shading. All right, so I've been twisting and turning this one until I found this area here, and this is going to line up. Now these layers get a little bit more whimsical, so we don't need to look for perfection here, because like I said, it's not really supposed to be perfect this time. And again, just go in and mask off areas that are going to be for the centers of the flowers. All right, so for this one, I'm bringing in a lighter purple color. This one happens to be triple berry, and I'll just go in starting from the center of the flowers again to give that kind of natural shading. I'm going to go in and blend that out in a circular motion and do it for each of the 3 flowers. You don't need to do this. You can just give it one flat solid color, but I like to go in and just do some natural shading like that with the center of the flower being just a little bit darker than the rest of the image as well. Now we'll reveal that, and I really like how that leaves some white space. It gives some really awesome look for the coloring. Like, I like the kind of whimsical feel of it. All right, next we're gonna go in with this layer for the flower. And again, on the guide, it does have little areas to kind of really line things up, but you can kind of just do a little bit of guesswork and puzzle it together here. And I'm going in with the same purple blending brush, but this time I'm using Crown Me, which is quite a bit of a darker purple color, right on top to add in this shading layer, and just do it on all 3 of those flowers. All right, we'll lift off these magnets to reveal that beautifully shaded second layer. I love how easy it is to color this in like that. All right, now for the center layers, I'm going to do some shooting star for the details here. So this really bright and vibrant yellow. We'll have these lined up. We don't even need to really go in and make sure they're taped down. We'll just hold it in place as we just go over those areas lightly with our super bright and vibrant yellow. All right, then there's an even more solid center layer, which we will line up. And again, it's separate from the 3rd flower over there. And for this, I'm using Slippery and Wet, which is our more mustardy and darker yellow color. And we'll go in just with our Ranger foam blending tools and blend that into place. You can see that beautiful dark mustardy color there. And that is going to really easily shade everything in. And we'll do the same thing on this side here. All right, I am in love with how all of that shading and blending turned out. It's really easy to do with all of those stencils, and that really awesome outline image on top, I think really completes everything and finishes it off. All right, we're going to bring in the die that lines up with everything and tape it down with a little mint tape to hold it into place, and then we'll run this through our die cutting machine. All right, guys, it's been a while, but it's time for another episode of Simon Awkwardly Die Cutting, this time with Christmas decor. All right, now to make a background for the card base, I'm using the water marble background stamp and a little bit of Woof ink for some nice tone-on-tone stamping. So I'll apply my ink down to the surface here, and then we'll go in and even it out by tapping our ink pad all over. Place that down, and then I like to again go in with this pressure tool, and I just use this to evenly smooth all over our background to make sure everything gets a nice transfer. And then when we lift it off, there is our beautifully stamped background on there. I absolutely love this background stamp and that cool water marble look it gives. I finished it off with a sentiment from the set that says wishing you a beautiful day, and heat embossed that on some black cardstock, and then added everything down onto the card base to finish it off really nicely. I love how this one turned out, and how easy that stencil is makes it to color everything in on your card making project. All right, now let's move on to the next card. For this one, I'm going to use the same Into the Woodland stencil. Here I'm using the first 3 stencil layers to make another bunch of flowers. Now this one has a stamped image along with it, but I want to share how you can use it without the stamped image to create a beautiful effect as well. All right, starting off with stencil 1, let's place this down onto our card on the Stay-tion. I'm going to then also take a little bit of my mint tape and mask things off here. I'm going to mask off any leaves that have this etching mark around them. That means that it's not supposed to be in the same layer, and you just need to mask those off so it doesn't get colored in with the first color. All right, for this I'm bringing in a little bit of Prom Queen, and we can go in with one of our blending brushes, and again, to add a little bit of natural shading, especially to this one since it doesn't have a bunch of layers, I'm gonna go in and start my blending from the center of the flower and blend outwards. So same thing with all of these different petals. We can go in and kind of go from one direction to give it a little bit of natural shading all throughout. Once that's complete, we can lift this off and you can see that beautiful first layer, and we'll come back to those leaves in just a second. I want to finish off a little bit more of that pink, so then again, we can go in with this second layer. Now let me show you guys how I figure out how to kind of line things up. Of course, again, a little bit of help will be on the stencil packaging, but I can kind of guess a little bit as well. So I'm gonna go in here and kind of start covering up things. Now you'll know that you have things lined up correctly if these leaves are all lining into place there. So you can see I just kind of puzzled it into place, and you'll have little shapes and outlines that might give you an idea. So like here, it covers this pink part up completely that we've already done. So that's a good sign that we're in the right direction. We're covering up these areas up here, which is good, and covering some down here. Now another part that I know that we're kind of in the right direction to line this up is that the leaves kind of fall in between all the other ones. So that looks like it's going to line up perfectly there once we've puzzled everything into place. Again, we'll bring in a little bit of our prom queen, and we'll do the exact same thing, starting from the center to give us a little bit of shading and working our way outward. Like I said, this doesn't have a second layer, so I always like to do a little bit of natural shading like that. So once this is all complete, I really love these magnets. It just makes it so much easier to lift things off and not have to use a bunch of tape. And there we have our flowers already forming. Now there is centerpieces here that we'll add in just a second. Actually, before we do those centers, we do have one more layer of pink here that's gonna help us line everything up with the centers. So I'm just going to place that down. That one's pretty easy. Again, you can see that it's covering up a lot, and then since it's getting closer to the end, it's easier to line things up, but it fills in all the rest of the petals. We'll lift that off, and now is the time where we can go in and add our centers in with a little bit of Lunar paste. All right, for this layer, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of slippery when wet Lunar paste. I'm going on to a little sponge applicator here. I'm just going to bring some out with a palette knife, add it down onto my applicator tool by just kind of spreading it out a little bit like that. And then we can go in here and kind of blend that onto the surface, and it's gonna give us a beautiful golded effect. If we want to, we can bring a little bit more out, add that down, and go in and blend it on. There we have our beautiful kind of golden accents. And since it's just such a thin layer, it's gonna dry pretty quickly, but we can also go in with our range or heat it tool and speed that up if you're impatient like me. All right, and after about like 10 to 15 seconds of heating, it's dry to the touch and nothing's gonna come off on your fingers, which is really awesome, but it still has that amazing and stunning shine. All right, then for these sponges, before this dries, I've actually learned from one of my viewers, Elizabeth, thank you for this, that wetting them and then wiping them off is probably the best way to go. You just want to get as much of that paste out of there, so of course you could take this to a sink to wash it out, but wetting it is gonna just help get that medium out, so that this stays nice and soft for the next use. Of course, you're gonna wanna let it dry, so just do this kind of after you're done with your blending tool for that day. And it really just does clean that out fully and keeps your sponges nice and soft for the next time you wanna use it. So that is definitely the best way to clean out these sponge tools. I've been looking, kind of trying different things, and that is by far my favorite. All right, once that's done, let's go in with our first layer of leaves. I'm going to line things up. This is stencil number 3. And the way that I'm gonna line this up is, again, find kind of detailed areas. So you're gonna, like, look, that corner just covers that up perfectly. That's how I know that's gonna align really well. All right, for this, I'm going in with a little bit of Later Gator as my base color here. So we'll just go in and add a little bit of color down. It by no means needs to be perfect because we're gonna go over top of it in just a second. So just adding kind of a light layer of color down. Now to add a little bit of shine and dimension, we're going in with a little bit of my Later Gator paste. I absolutely love this green color. That might be a little bit too much, but then just go in and add some right down onto your sponge tool, and then go in on the surface and just start kind of blending this over top. I like to go in a blending motion. It is still a paste, so it's going to hold those peaks if you like to dab it on. And I don't want that kind of texture. So I'm just gonna go in and kind of blend this on for a little bit of shimmer. And that bottom layer of color is just gonna help it so that, like, in case if we don't make it perfectly opaque and spread a ton of paste on there, at least we still have got color underneath. All right, again, after about 20 seconds of heating that, you can see that the shine has really increased. It increases after it dries, for sure, and you can see that there's that little thin layer gives it just a beautiful and magnificent shine when you tilt it in the light. You really want to see almost no color, and that's how you know it's going to be good for a next use. If you've still got some color in there, that means that the paste is still inside and it's going to make it a little bit firm. So this is a perfectly clean sponge. All right, and remember this first stencil where we taped these off? That is the final layer of leaves. So we'll just peel those off and add them in. So for this, I'll line that stencil right back into place, exactly how we had it, lined up with those flowers. And that's gonna make all those leaves line up. Now this time, we're gonna go in here and mask off the flower areas so that those don't get colored in as we go in for the leaves. Here I'll go in with a little bit of darker green. I'm using a little bit of fake plant this time to go in and just shade these guys in quickly. And again, I love that you can either use the detailed image from this set to stamp that down, or you can use just the stencil by itself to get this beautiful result. And I love that Lunar paste layers too, to give just a little bit of added shine. You guys are really getting a bonus, 2 awkward die cuttings in one video. I'm telling you. It's hard to come by. All right, here I used the Sending Birthday Hug sentiment, stamped that down and added everything onto a little bit of foam tape and onto a colored card base to finish it off. And I love how this turned out. Again, I put it kind of down to the bottom edge here to really ground it in place, but the little bit of Lunar paste in there and all of that layered blending really makes this stand out. All right guys, I hope you enjoyed this video showing some layered stencil techniques and 2 different ways to do it, and also some of Altenew's beautiful new release. I'll have everything that I used linked down below in the description, and leave a comment down below on which card was your favorite. I'd love to hear from you guys down there. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Click subscribe so you never miss videos like this one, and I'll see you guys soon. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.